Hello and welcome to another episode of Food and Dine. This is a Top Chef podcast. My name is Quiche.
And my name is Gnocchi. And today we'll be discussing Top Chef Season 21, Episode 9, The Good Land. And just to very briefly recap this episode, there was a quickfire challenge. The chef testants were given 30 minutes to make a dish featuring cranberries in a unique way. The winning chef testant was Danny. His total for quickfires, by the way, is now $43,000.
Oof, not a bad sum of money.
Not too shabby. And then for the elimination challenge, the chef testants had to create modern dishes using only indigenous ingredients. And the winning chef testant was Savannah with her jelly cake.
Jelly cake, yeah.
We'll discuss. The chef testant who was sent to LCK this week, well, actually, the double pasta press of culinary terror finally dropped.
It did.
2 chef testants were sent to Last Chance Kitchen. Amanda and Laura. Lady of Darkness is no more. She gone. Quiche, what did you think of this episode?
Well, I think we were kind of building up to it from last week. We were talking about how excited we were to see native ingredients and cuisine highlighted in the next episode. So already so happy we got to see it and it came out, and I could just say the show just keeps getting better for me. The quickfire having an impact on the elimination challenge, I like that.
Oh,
So I thought this was a good episode. It introduced some interesting new twists and turns. And as a child, I was obsessed with cranberry bogs. So, I know that's a really niche, weird thing, but I was. So it was fun to see that.
Okay. All right. We'll definitely get into that in the quickfire. Very briefly before we discuss the quickfire, I do have a little bit of luggage to bring to the counter.
Ooh, yes. The flight will be leaving soon. We'd like you to check in your last bits of luggage and baggage.
Thank you.
Come to the counter. Thank you.
For this Top Chef baggage check, I didn't even realize this until I read the review in Vulture. However, they pointed out that Top Chef Boston, Season 12, Episode 6, they did almost virtually the same exact thing as they did in this episode.
Oh.
The quickfire was a cherry challenge elimination, and they did indeed, they physically went to an actual bog. The other difference with the second half, on the face of it, it was a first Thanksgiving challenge. On that premise, they could only use ingredients that would have been available at that time. So it wasn't necessarily strictly indigenous, but it was very limited. In that episode in Boston, they had to cook at a site, at a house, with a working fireplace, cooking pit outside, the whole 9 yards. So it was a little more I would argue a little more challenging. I don't know. I wasn't there.
Just a little. Maybe just a little bit.
And then the other bag, very light, is the thing about food foams, or as I believe Dan said, his wife calls it spit.
Yeah, delicious.
The first time I can ever remember seeing food foam, was Top Chef Los Angeles Season 2, Marcel Vigneron, 17 years ago.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Food foams, yes. And that season, you know how in other seasons there's been the black garlic or the agua chili or the croquette. This particular season, it was for Marcel Vigneron, it was food foams.
Okay. The food foam guy.
Yeah. So that is my Top Chef baggage check for this week.
Okay. All right. I think you can carry that with you. That can even stay in your hands when you're sitting on the flight. You don't even have to stow it. I think that's fine.
Thank you. Well, since I breezed onto the plane so quickly and easily, we're here at the quickfire. So
yeah, time to discuss.
Oh yes. So yes, they had to cook with cranberries. They were tasked to do something unique with those cranberries. Gail specifically very clearly said to these chef testants, do not make me a sauce. And yet, my chef testant, Sue, proceeds to make a sauce. Amanda proceeds to make a sauce. Savannah proceeds to make a sauce. And Dan, who did make it to the top 3, he also proceeded to make a sauce.
Sauces were made.
Sauces all around sauces for everyone. Yeah. So, but Dan did land in the top 3 with his, and Amanda landed in the bottom 3 with her sauce. So that brings us to, we don't typically discuss the bottom of the line and the top of the line dishes. However, there's a little bit of a change in the quickfire format this week, so we will have to discuss those dishes. There were 3 chef testants in the bottom of the quickfire. There was Laura with her Fessingjon, And then there was Manny with his pork tenderloin. And there was Amanda with her hoe cake and her fried chicken. And then in the top, there was Dan with his scallops. There was Michelle with her cranberry borscht.
Yeah, never heard of that. Would never think of that, too.
Mind blowing. And the winner, Danny, who juiced his cranberries. He definitely did not make a sauce with his cranberries. He earned that win.
Oh, yeah.
His winnings are now 43,000. Holy smokes.
Good for him, you know?
And then I also usually do not discuss in too much depth the judges for the Quickfire. However, I'm going to make an exception this week for reasons.
Good reasons.
Yes, the judges for the Quickfire, cranberry farmer Rochelle Hoffman. Very nice to meet her. Lovely. And also, besides Rochelle Hoffman, there was Kristen.
Classic.
And, surprise, surprise, standing in their hip waders, Gail and Tom, which brings me to...
I was gonna say, they looked very at home in that little faux cranberry bog.
They did. I love Gail's little, I could use a belt.
Yeah, just like a nice little cargo colored belt to match the waders.
And I've kind of whipped through this Quickfire, but that's because, Quiche, I wanted to ask you, did you have any thoughts about the Quickfire that you wanted to share with the class? For any reason, I don't know why you would, but would you happen to have Quickfire thoughts?
Quickfire thoughts. Yeah, of course. I mean, from a little, what would Quiche do perspective, when they said cranberries, I was like, oh, huh? How do you cook with those? Because, I mean, the extent of my knowledge with cranberries is... Like Manny, he was like, oh yeah, I had Thanksgiving and it was like cranberries from a can and turkey, and I'm not big on that. I feel that, Manny. I do. I'm not big on that either because I don't actually like the flavor of cranberries all that much.
Oh.
I'm fascinated with the way they are grown and harvested, but I don't like them. I do think, though, that having this new element of the Quickfire has a say in, let's call it the final grade of the episode. It reminded me of like a school kind of thing, like the Quickfire is the midterms that happen and then the elimination is your final. And if you don't do great on your final, maybe your midterm is still something that holds you up. So I liked that. I thought it was fair, a good way to balance things, but that also just might be me in my academic brain being like, I love school. That's a good way to judge it because that's like school. So I can't actually speak to that if it's good or not.
Well, I liked it too, actually. The trailer that dropped on March 2nd, I want to say, revealed that they were going to do this in the mid-season. So I don't know how much of a twist it really was for viewers. But I do like it because one of the things that we've brought up with our immunity checks is how little tension there was from the Quickfire. You have the elimination the week before. We could never remember who on earth was in the top or the bottom of the elimination. And so that drained a lot of the drama from the elimination the following episode. And in olden days when you had the Quickfire, you could win immunity. And I had said early on in the season, I'm a little bit worried that the chef testants may, lay back and not pull out their best. All they're going to do is maybe lose out on a couple $1,000s. The stakes are not as high. But now the stakes are, yes, there's money, but also you could go home. And so my fears unfortunately came true for many of the chef testants who didn't do maybe their best because the stakes just weren't high enough. And now you saw the stakes are a lot higher. And also I suspect you felt a little bit more of that drama because the Quickfire, it had immediate impact. You didn't have to remember back to last episode. You just had to think about earlier in the same episode who was at risk.
I feel like it definitely, because the experience that I've had in the last episodes of watching them is that there's a distinct separation between the two parts of the episode. It's almost like they're their own episodes because they're disconnected, like there's the Quickfire and then there's the elimination. But this one, it felt more entwined, obviously, because they've introduced elements that make them entwined. But I did enjoy that. I thought it's a nice shift, good shift.
So yeah, I definitely like that they're on the judging panel now because it seems like it put a little culinary fear into the chef testants, shall we say?
Oh yeah, big time.
Quiche, did you have any tidbits for the Quickfire?
I do. I have a little note on the subtitles again, and it also has to do with Danny again. In the judging portion, he was saying we, like he was saying yes, like O-U-I, we. And I was like, yeah, okay. And I have the subtitles on because, I like reading subtitles from time to time. They say things, dishes, and I'm like, I don't know what that is or how to spell it. So having the subtitles up, beneficial. It helps me. In the subtitles, when Danny said we, French word, yes, they put WEE, like we, both times. And I was like, I don't think that's what he's saying. I was like, I don't think that's right. So that's a funny little moment in collab with Peacock and their captioning services. I liked that. And my other little tidbit for the quickfire and generally for the episode, I was getting it a little bit last episode, but now I'm getting it even more that it just kind of feels like more of a family. The chef testants seem like they're getting even closer and closer with each other. It makes when people leave harder and harder and harder. But I love seeing that they're all just like so comfortable with each other at this point. They know they're competitors and there's only one person who's going to be top chef, but that doesn't stop the fact that they are relentlessly supporting each other and encouraging each other and comforting each other. And that is such a golden thing about Top Chef and specifically about this group. It might be like that in other seasons of Top Chef, but since this is my first experience with it, I'm just like, oh, this group is family. It's so sweet.
No, I love that tidbit because it's what is it? So many of them they come out of it and they say this is culinary boot camp. You're surrounded by people who love food or are as obsessed about food as you are. Some of them have come out and they say, even though I was eliminated in episode 2 or 3, I learned more about food in those first 3 weeks than I did in X number of months in kitchens. And because you don't have TV, you don't have your phone, you don't have the internet, you're surrounded by chef testants. What are you going to do? You're literally going to talk about food. It's chef boot camp. You're also sequestered from everyone, which means you're going through this fairly tough experience, a team building exercise. What do they call those?
Oh gosh, yeah. The trust fall.
The trust fall. You're going through a trust fall that lasts for several weeks, months.
Oh gosh. Oh, I've said it once, I'll say it again. I don't think I could do it. But you do bring up a good point, how they're really kind of pulled out of society almost for a good amount of time. And that does bring up the thought. It's really cool because not only is it a competition, but it is a shared space of learning. So like something that one chef does, another chef might be like, oh, I didn't know how to do that. That's something that I'm like taking note from you on, or I'm going to learn from you on this or that. And obviously we get into a little bit more of like learning and the trades of different culinary experiences in the elimination challenge. But I do see that generally as something that could happen in Top Chef just in general, which is so fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that this is maybe a potential note of Dank. The chef testants, we're not seeing as much of the behind the scenes of them hanging out as we have in previous seasons, where we've actually seen them showing each other how to cook things when they're just relaxing, chilling, not competing with each other and little things like that. We got to see a little bit of it. This was actually going to be one of my tidbits for the elimination was Manny cooking for all of them.
So sweet.
And like, that's wonderful to see. And you can clearly see that they really are bonding and they're sitting there talking about a challenge all together, even though it's an individual challenge. And what I had said to you last week was, why didn't we get to see that for Restaurant Wars? Because that would have been a perfect time to see the two teams getting together and talking. So we get to see it this week when they all have an individual challenge and technically are competing against each other, but we don't get to see it when they're on teams and they really should be working together.
That's true.
Mm-hmm. I did have one tidbit for the quickfire, and it was Savannah's war mirror.
Yeah, girl.
No, I thought that was really cool. And when I was reading Bouteloux's review of the episode in People, and Bouteloux, I will remind everyone again, he is the GOAT because he won back-to-back seasons of Top Chef, season 19 and 20. He said that he did the same thing in his 2 seasons, except he did his in his journal, where he thought about what could the potential challenges be. Okay, if that's a potential challenge, what are the dishes I could potentially execute for that challenge?
That's really good. That's being prepared fully, yeah.
So for the elimination challenge, the chef testants were tasked with creating modern dishes using only indigenous ingredients. The pantry was provided for them this time by the guest judges, Elena Terry and Sean Sherman. The chef testants had no access to dairy, wheat flour, cane sugar, pork, beef, or chicken. The winning chef testant was Savannah. She made a squash and maple jelly cake, which melted the minds and taste buds, apparently, of all the judges. Kristen couldn't even speak coherently. She was so blown away by this dish, which, wow. Jelly cake does not sound like anything I ever want to try. However, apparently, winning dish. The chef testant who got sent to Last Chance Kitchen, well, hold on a minute. These chef testants that got sent to Last Chance Kitchen, the final long-promised double elimination finally arrived. And Amanda, her elk tataki tatar, sent her home, and Laura, who really wasn't that strong of a Lady of Darkness in her last episodes, I gotta say, but
Right.
Lady of Darkness, nonetheless, with her duck tamal, was also sent to Last Chance Kitchen. So Quiche, what did you think of the elimination?
I didn't think they were gonna do it. I mean, for just to hop to the end of it, I didn't think they were gonna do the double elimination. I was like, no. I mean, it feels like it was just last episode. I know it wasn't, but it feels like it was just last episode that they introduced that, saying, oh, it could be two chefs sent home. And I was like, oh, are they really gonna do it this time? Like, no, they wouldn't do it, would they? And then they did. And it's almost like ripping the Band-Aid off, just because we've been anticipating this for so long, because they keep threatening it. I don't know. I mean, it was awful to see them go, but at the same time, I'm like, now I know, right? Only one person at a time, unless they change things up again.
No. Usually it's one. A double is a big deal. It's an exceptional big deal.
Okay. All right. So I can take a few breaths now and hopefully settle back into the Top Chef elimination challenge with a little more peace.
Although, who knows with this season?
That's true. They do change things up pretty often.
I was once a Top Chef scholar, but what do I know?
Now we refer to the scholars of Reddit whenever we can. We're like, please help.
I've been wrong since episode 1. Lords of Reddit, please help me.
But yeah, this elimination challenge was fascinating and exciting. And there were a lot of new ingredients that I had not heard of before. Some that I had heard of, but had no idea what to do with.
Oh, this prompts the question, which I must ask. What would Quiche do for the Indigenous Foods Challenge?
Thank you. Yes. Quiche had to use a lot of brain power and search engines for this one. I went through a whole docket of internet pages on acorns specifically first, like figuring out which ones can you eat, which ones can't you eat, what's the flavor profile of them, how do they need to be processed, how do they need to be treated so that you can eat them, and if it's one that you can't eat raw, it won't kill you after you do cook it when you eat it or make you violently ill. And then I ended up not even using acorns in the recipe
because they might kill you.
Because I was like, it's a little too real for me, man. I don't know if the fake dish that I'm concocting now has the potential to imaginarily kill me. I don't think I want to make it in my mind. I stepped off the acorns. I do recognize that they are a very valuable resource, not being utilized to their full potential right now. That being said, I still have no idea what I'm doing. So what would Quiche do? Quiche is putting together, this is like maybe like a little treat. I won't say dessert. It definitely did not reach the energy that Savannah's dessert brought. But I was looking up a couple of the different native plants that I have around where I live. Amaranth is one of them. Amaranth, if you don't know, is a grain. The plants that I see, it's this really beautiful, and they can grow very, very like tall and purple, like a purpley. I feel like the best way to describe the stalk is like almost like a sunflower stalk, and then the leaves are like oversized tomato plant leaves, but purple. My mom has memories of this plant from when she was younger, and what you do is like you could hold your hand under the areas where like the seeds are, and you'd tap it, and then like all the seeds would fall into your hand. It's like really cool.
Yeah.
I've never used it though. So this is all just me hoping for the best. So amaranth, popped amaranth, and pine nut Rice Krispie treat bound by honey rather than marshmallow.
That actually really sounds good.
I feel like you're being way too nice to me. This seems like it would not compare to Top Chef. I mean, thank you. Like a million times thank you. But like, it doesn't work.
hold on. So season, I want to say 13 or whatever season Top Chef California was. I think it was season 13. The very first episode, Chef Philip Franklin Lee, who we've mocked in previous episodes. Right, we mocked him last week for his Bangkok Dangerous.
Ah, yes. Icon.
For the record, of all the chef testants, and there have been hundreds at this point, right? He currently has the most Michelin stars of all the Top Chef alums. He's actually a really accomplished chef. Just because these chef testants may potentially embarrass themselves in the course of a challenge, people in the real world recognize that these are challenges.
That's true. That is true.
So, Top Chef California, the very first episode, Chef Philip Franklin Lee, for his dish, which the judges loved, they had to cook for, I want to say 100 critics, etc., food critics, etc., including the judges, to introduce themselves, to the judges and obviously the show for that season. And they each had to make a dish representing themselves or, some kind of impress these people. These are food bloggers. These are food critics. And he made a dish, and I cannot remember all the components of the dish because I did not know that you were going to bring up puffed amaranth. But he made puffed amaranth and he used it in his dish, and the judges loved it. They absolutely loved it. And I actually have cooked with amaranth.
Oh.
It's a grain, much like any other. So when you say puffed amaranth, that sounds good. That sounds like popcorn. That sounds like puffed rice. That sounds fantastic.
Oh, okay.
And also, it has been used by a top chef testant who the judges loved and who now has Michelin stars. And I'm not saying, I'm just saying.
I'm not saying, I'm just saying, though. I appreciate that. I mean, maybe this can be like a collab dish because you've cooked with it before, so you know it. So maybe we can join forces in the Top Chef kitchen on this one and make this our joint indigenous take on a Rice Krispie treat.
Quiche, the only thing you want me in the kitchen for is tasting.
Oh.
I'll happily taste this amazing. It sounds good.
Well, I mean, we've touched on and danced around Savannah's dish, the squash and maple jelly cake with aronia berries, grapes, and plum jelly. How?
Quiche.
Yeah.
No, knowing that the judges raved about this dish, do you want to try this dish?
I'm wondering, I just made a very last minute connection in my head. I'm wondering if the consistency of this dish is similar at all to butter mochi.
Oh.
Because I'm a fan of butter mochi, and if it has a similar consistency, I think it would at least be palatable texturally for me. I like squash and I like maple.
True.
And grapes and plums. I don't know aronia berries. I'm not sure about that, but
they described it as pumpkin pie meets gingerbread.
I like those two things. I do.
That's not necessarily the worst thing.
No, and if it's in like a butter mochi kind of texture, I could maybe get behind that.
Yeah. And you saying mochi. So she's chef de cuisine at M Tempura, which is a Japanese restaurant. This dessert really, if it has that kind of texture, could potentially fit in to the menu at M Tempura.
Yeah. And that's like a very unique and special fusion, I feel like, as well, because butter mochi having Japanese Hawaiian history and then using native ingredients, indigenous ingredients from America. It's pretty, I don't, hey, where can she put that on the menu? Can I come try it?
I'm very tempted after this. So if I mental list to myself, if I remember to go check the website, check M Tempura's website and see what their menu looks like.
Oh my goodness. I'd love to know. Well, if she ends up putting it on a menu, that would be an incredible thing to try. I do want to highlight there were a couple comments about her dish and the way that she was approaching it that I feel like deserve some attention. How in her preparation of this dish, she was saying, "Oh, it seems like it's going to turn out into this, so I guess that's just what it's going to be." And then in the end, that was taken by Sean he put it very eloquently. He said, allowing the food to tell its story. And I thought that was so lovely. It was letting the ingredients on the counter come together in the way that they're meant to come together and not imposing your own view of like, oh no, this should be a Rice Krispie treat, like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like that kind of happened with Sue's dish as well. They said, we need egg, give us egg. So he gave him some egg and it worked out.
Yeah, he did. He used duck egg, right?
Yep. I thought for sure he'd be on the bottom with Amanda, Laura, and Michelle, which brings us to the Quickfire Effect, shall we say?
Yes, the Quickfire Effect.
Bringing the drama to the elimination, shall we say?
Oh my gosh, it really did. It was a whole time and a half this time. You're like thinking about the first 30 minutes of the episode and bringing it into the last 30 minutes of the episode. And I almost forgot about it. I was like, they were like, oh, it's so difficult. We have we have a dish that like, how do we judge who's going to go home? And they're like, oh, well, why don't we just think about the quickfires too? And I was like, oh my gosh, that's right. The quickfires, like these factor in now. And then my heart rate spikes.
The pasta press swinging above you.
It is. And it's descending quickly.
Yes, because, oh boy, your girl, Michelle, so lucky. That cranberry borscht saved Michelle.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I'm glad for it. I'm glad for it. I was sad to see how the braised rabbit ended up turning out a little too dry because, she's the queen of that. She's the queen of the slow cooked meats. She's the pit master and all that stuff. But she was able to own up to saying like, "Oh, I realized I left it in the pizza oven a little too long." I appreciate that she was willing to own up to the culinary missteps of the dish, I guess.
I have to wonder if nerves is getting to her because that is her wheelhouse. Michelle, what are you doing? You've already cooked the meat. You don't need to kill it again.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, Team M&M, man, week by week. It's got to be a roller coaster for you.
It's getting really stressful. Oh my goodness. And because there was also the comment, I'm sorry to go off on a tangent. There was a comment about Manny, how the judges were like, "Oh, we've seen that he does like it's the same thing. Like it is his signature is like a meat thing and then a sauce. That's just what he does." And they're saying, "Oh, can he break out of this?" I'm like, "Oh, what does this mean for his future in the competition? I'm so worried."
Mm-hmm. You might be in for a second half, or I've been the first half. I've been having to pick a chef testant every week.
I know.
Now it seems like maybe I'm okay with Danny and Sue, but I was a little worried about Team M&M, and Demanda is no more because Amanda.
Oh yeah.
The Amanda half of Demanda is gone.
I'm very proud of Amanda though, even though I don't know her at all, because I mean, think back to episode 1. She was one of the 3 on the cutting block in that very first episode. And through the entire time that she spent on Top Chef after that, she had some really, really good dishes that stood out, very creative ways to approach the challenges. And she was sent to Last Chance Kitchen. There's still potential and possibility for her and Laura.
Yeah, because Amanda actually, as we noted last week, kept climbing and climbing and climbing until she got to the top 4, and now she's no longer in the top 4.
Man, this show really does just throw everything at you. You think you know what's going on, and then you don't.
How's your blood pressure? I should have said you should get a full physical before you embark on this podcast. My apologies. My bad.
Oh, you're good. You're good. I'm sure my general practitioner will have something to say about it. Like, you're in the worst health of your life. What have you been doing?
Did you have any tidbits for the elimination, Quiche?
Yes, I do have some tidbits. One of the tidbits that I have, of course, I've got one for Michelle. She had a fun little quote. She said, "I definitely smoke a lot of things," and then had a really like sketchy look into the camera and said, "Food-wise, haha."
I clocked that. Yeah.
Yeah, that was so funny. And I also, this is a new one for me because to me, I mean, the judges, they're like intimidating. But then Tom just casually cracked a joke. He said, "Holy alliteration, Batman." And I was like, "Tom, what?" That's so fun.
King of the dad jokes. Good one-liners. Very nice. Yeah.
Do you have any tidbits for the elimination challenge, Gnocchi?
I do have a few. Not going to dwell on it because Sue's backstory, holy Batman, horrific.
I know. Oh my gosh.
So yeah, one of the reviews I read said, Sue, in terms of icebreakers, I don't know how this one's going to go with the chef.
The way he just casually dropped the lore, he was like, "Oh yeah, I was beaten." And they're like, "What? What?" And he's like, "Yeah, I was physically." And they're like, oh, okay.
I love how all the chef tests, their heads, you could hear their heads screeching as they all whip their heads around to look at him, go, "Oh my gosh, were you beaten as a child?" Yes, I was. What?
I know, he was so casual about it. And he's like, "Oh yeah," and then we moved to the United States. And it's like, "Oh, okay. Well, happy you're here."
Yeah, my team. Danny and Sue. Okay.
Fighters, strong.
Yeah. And then, since we don't do a Top Chef learning moment, I just wanted to very quickly, just 2 things that I had to look up. Huitlacoche, that's a parasitic plant disease. That's what he was cooking with. That's what my man Sue was cooking with, a parasitic plant disease. And then haroset. Laura once again bringing the culinary food knowledge. Oh my god, is she a food bank? That's not the right word. She's a food something.
Is she a food bank? Yeah, I love that. I love that though. I mean, yeah, she is.
So much food knowledge. Oh my goodness.
She really does. She does have a lot of food knowledge. Reminiscing on that rice pudding she started us out with, going back to the beginning. I shed a tear.
That was when I wanted to know you, Laura.
We've been on quite a journey. Very much so. Okay, all right. So that wraps us up for the elimination challenge, which means, as you know, it is time to get into snack time.
Woohoo!
Welcome to Snack Time, High Speed Dining. Welcome back to the table.
Welcome.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here. I've got like gorilla fever. Oh, me Tarzan, me vape. I don't know. I'm just excited to be here again. Another week of Top Chef, and I'm thrilled about it. I did some research based upon what I saw this week too, so it's very exciting.
Ooh la la. Before we get into Top Chef, Joel, did you have a best bite to share with us for this week?
You know, I'm going to take you guys back to a great bite I had when I was in Florida last year for my tour. I went to an indigenous restaurant, a restaurant called Ulele, Tampa, Florida, where they serve indigenous foods, which we saw a lot of in this episode. I had a great bite there. I mean, I had gator tail but native chili.
Oh my goodness.
And this native chili had alligator, wild boar, venison, duck, ground chuck, cranberry beans, and chili spices.
Whoa.
And I got an 8-ounce bowl for $8.
Ooh.
Cranberry beans? Wow.
Yeah, this was pretty wild because they take great pride, in their history and things, and it's a huge place. And it's just beautiful on the water. And I had some great food. And, whenever I go traveling and visiting cities, I try and do something unique and interesting that I can find only in these cities. You'd love to be able to say, I went to this unique place in this city. And, this was definitely one of those restaurants in Florida, Ulele. They like to say they celebrate the vibrant fusion of ingredients from Florida waters and land once home to many Native Americans.
Wow.
It's a good time. So that would be my best bite as we take a trip back to my birthday trip from last year.
That's very cool. And you mentioned that there were cranberry beans in the dish. And wouldn't you know it, cranberries were the focal point of the Quickfire.
Full circle.
I was thrilled with that one, yeah. I mean, I guess that's why there were cranberries there. It's one of these native things. Maybe not to Florida, but holy cow, there are a ton of cranberry farmers in Wisconsin. How did you know a lot about cranberries when you watched this episode?
Unfortunately, yes.
No, everything I learned about cranberries, I learned from Top Chef.
Did you get interested? Did it make you want to research a little bit more? Because I really researched like crazy.
I believe Quiche. Quiche may have a word or two to say about cranberries as well.
Yeah, so when I was a young child, I was actually obsessed with cranberry bogs for a while. Just, it was something that I latched onto as a little kid and just wanted to learn everything about it. At one point, I was like determined that I would eventually partake in a cranberry bog of some kind in some way. Be that harvesting or owning it, I don't know, but that was the intention in my small child mind.
I didn't even know what a cranberry bog was until this past episode. So that really got me interested.
Yeah.
And I did some research on things. Did you know there are 4 interior chambers in a cranberry and that's why they float?
No!
I did not know that.
Yeah, that's exactly why. And so it makes it really easy for them to harvest it by flooding things out. The best cranberries are harvested dry, but because only 5% of all the cranberries are eaten whole, they just go for it with the bogs and do it that way. Do you know how old the average cranberry vine and plant grows for?
No.
They can be 10 to 50 years old is the average, up to 100 years old.
Whoa.
That's crazy.
Oh my gosh.
Look at that. High Speed Dining bringing some information to the table today.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
50% of the world's cranberries are grown in Wisconsin. That's crazy.
Let's go.
Do you know how many pounds the average person eats in a year?
4 pounds.
Less than 2.
Well, it's between both of you guys. 2.3 pounds per person.
Oh, hey.
Almost entirely, though, in the form of juice or juice blends. Yeah, the cranberry industry provides about $1 billion in annual revenue for Wisconsin. The article I read, it's a few years old, but there were around 250 farms that grew cranberries on over 21,000 acres, over 4,000 jobs it creates. Really interesting. I gotta tell you, that's a fruit I just didn't know as much as I should have. And here's the last fact. I'm going all Forrest Gump on you guys today. Yeah, cranberries, definitely cranberries. Yeah. Cranberries are one of 3 commercially developed fruit crops native to North America. Can you guess any of the other two?
Ooh, would acorns be one of them?
That's a nut, right? So that's not a fruit.
Twinkies would also not be a fruit crop.
Twinkies? No? Okay.
Lil Debbie's.
What about oranges?
Oranges? Oh, that's a good guess. Gnocchi guessed oranges?
Oh, no!
No?
This is not that easy, to be honest with you.
Oh, no? Oh, okay.
The hard one would be Concord grapes.
Oh.
But the other one, when I say it, you're going to be, okay, that makes sense. Blueberries.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you're right. That does make sense.
Oh, okay.
Right. Look at that. I did so much research this week. Top Chef is making me a smarter, more educated, more excited to learn individual here. Thank you, Top Chef.
High-speed dining. Bringing the thunder to snack time. Wow.
That's true.
I hit pause for about 20 minutes reading articles on this stuff. Really interesting. So
It is fascinating.
it was exciting. Great episode. And I loved the cranberries. And everyone, obviously, when you see somebody stomping around in a big pool filled with fruit, you're like, well, what's going on here? We making wine today or something? That was my first thought.
Your job is to make and age wine. 20 minutes, go.
They do that in prison, don't they?
Oh, gosh.
Usually it's made in toilets, though. That's the thing. I've never had toilet wine. You?
No, not yet.
No.
All right.
Can't say I've experienced that.
Your homework assignment. There you go.
I don't think I'm gonna. I might take the F on that one. I might deliberately fail that one. I don't know.
I might see if I can find a once viral, back in the days when people read websites instead of watched videos, there was a recipe for prison hooch, toilet wine.
Oh my gosh.
That made the rounds. I believe it made the rounds when I was in school and we all passed it around. I'm gonna see if I can find it.
Yeah, pull it from the archives. I'd love to see the recipe for that.
You know, if there's a Top Chef Home Depot episode, maybe there's crazy cooking with not really pots and pans. You've got to, make a bathtub full of something or a toilet or...
No. That challenge needs to be behind the Hannibal, the Cannibal themed challenge.
Oh my gosh.
That challenge needs to happen first before the Home Depot food challenge happens.
It just gets more and more chaotic. They're like, the Hannibal challenge. Everyone's like, what? What do you mean?
Pick a chef testant and start cooking.
Oh gosh.
One of these days, I'm sure we'll be cooking with a grill in the back of a BMW. So.
I mean, hey, they're doing a hill climb and then they have to like make the perfect char burger or something in the back of a BMW. That would be kind of hilarious.
Yeah, actually. Hey. I mean, some of these vehicles you could cook in?
Sure.
Probably. I think so.
Maybe like an RV challenge? They can cook in an RV.
Ooh. Don't say that too loud. They might get ideas for the next season. Oh my gosh.
And then the quickfire challenge. Wait, hold on. Which challenge, the quickfire or the elimination, does the bear come into play in this challenge?
Oh.
Where you're trying to keep the food away from a bear.
I feel like that's a very elimination challenge aspect, right?
The bear comes in, takes a chef testant. Oh, that chef testant's gone.
That is a formal elimination from the competition, yes.
Have either of you eaten bear before?
No. Have you?
I have not. Never had bear. Though I have eaten food wild bear. That's a fact. It's truth.
Oh my gosh. That does remind me, there is a restaurant that I've been meaning to go to nearby, and their specialty is brats, but it's exotic meat brats. So the one that I want to try is rattlesnake.
Wow.
Ooh.
And I am so curious about that, but also a little afraid.
Well, your man, Dan the Man, High Speed Dining, not only is he still entrenched in the top 4, he is now tied for number 1 with Danny.
I thought this week he was going down. They do a little foreshadowing when they say, like, I'm just getting tired and burnt out. And I'm just like, okay, he may not be lasting, but he did great. And for him to take sunflower and just carve that up like artichoke, just very smart. I have had sunflower before, just like that. In fact, I had 3 Michelin star sunflower at 11 Madison Park.
Oh my gosh.
They treated it breaded it and deep fried it, I think, and it was just
Ooh.
crunchy goodness.
I remember that dish. It's beautiful. It looks like the sun when the dish comes out to you. It looks like the sun emoji.
Does it taste like sunflower seeds a little bit, or is it a different flavor profile?
It was more like artichoke hearts.
Okay, yeah.
Very much like that. In fact, they're all in the same family, according to
Oh.
this week's episode. Somebody mentioned that, I think. There seems to be a bond when you watch somebody cooking something different and unique and you've had it before. Because you're like, oh, I hope he can make it as good as where I had it. And seems like they're pulling it off. This was a really exciting episode. It was fun to watch them do something unique and to bring in a crazy ingredient like cranberries to be so prominent, and then to do the Native American foods. I enjoyed that a lot, so it was nice to see them pay tribute. Wisconsin, you guys are bringing it. Top Chef, we're having a blast.
I mean, we've come such a long way from, you remember the first few episodes, we had the Miller Lite cellars. We have now gone all the way toward indigenous foods. I feel like they're really making good strokes to cover Wisconsin in a very broad sense. We're all learning a lot, as you said.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to go do a crazy food challenge. I am going to go eat cheese pizza. I'll see you guys. Have a good one. We're doing it, Top Chef.
Nice. Well, take it cheesy.
Take it cheesy.
Thank you, High Speed Dining. And that was snack time.
Thank you.
And that was snack time. Thank you very much, High Speed Dining, for joining us again.
Woohoo!
Well, this episode, I sure learned a lot. I know you learned a lot. I'm inspired to keep digging into the indigenous ingredients around my area. And to all of our listeners, I encourage you to do the same. You know, there's a lot of biodiversity across each individual state, and multiply that by across the country and across America itself. So let this Top Chef episode inspire you. It has inspired me, and I'm looking forward to the next episode. I want to see what else I'm going to learn.
Oh, well, apparently you're going to learn all about a meat raffle, a raffle of meat, MEAT. Yes, I'm definitely intrigued because I have never heard of a meat raffle.
I haven't either. Is that like to, rake in funds at the county fair? Like, what is this?
It's a meat raffle. And also, there's going to be a fish boil.
Ooh, okay. That sounds involved. I like that.
But from the trailer, it definitely sounded involved.
I feel like, we just watched this one, but I already can't wait for the next. Oof. I feel like it was a little bit of a slow start, and especially for some of the Top Chef veterans kind of getting into this season, but I feel like we're hitting a stride. Can you confirm?
It's usually right around Restaurant Wars, like to the midpoint of the season. Yeah, and having the judges in the Quickfire kitchen, that should well, we've seen the Quickfire Effect already, so
That's true. And that'll be a segment from now on, as it must be.
Quiche, I forgot to ask you earlier, did you have any tasty morsels?
Ooh, any tasty morsels? There is a cookbook that I just saw today. I will link everyone to it. I'm not gonna try to pronounce it because I'll do it wrong. It's a cookbook that highlights indigenous Californian ingredients, and it's about the decolonization of the food world and how this is like a step you can take in doing that for yourself.
That's awesome.
And I'm sorry I can't give you the name of it because I'm literally scared to, but I will make sure that you all have access to that link.
Yes, we'll put it in the show notes. And I have a very, very quick tasty morsel, and it's the Last Chance Kitchen morsel.
Ooh.
And I know I promised you no spoilers, but this is again akin to the David Murphy non-spoiler because it's probably going to be out there in the metaverse.
Okay.
So we don't really know what happened with the trash man with David Murphy, why he wasn't in Last Chance Kitchen. But this time around, we do know that for personal health reasons, Kaylina decided to withdraw and not compete in Last Chance Kitchen.
Oh.
So it's a bit of a spoiler for you, but also she's not competing, so it might be out there in the like you might be seeing articles talking about her mental health and things like that.
Oh yeah.
And it's not she's fine, but she said the stress of the competition and for her mental health, she was going to take a step back. I guess she just didn't want to go through it again, which I honestly good for her for standing up for her health.
Yeah, no, that's of paramount importance in it. And she had a wonderful run on Top Chef. I feel like even fighting yourself back into the competition from Last Chance Kitchen, that's a win of itself. Being on the show, period, is a win of itself.
Yes, absolutely. And that's my tasty morsel.
Well, thank you for that. I appreciate that. I would have been sad and confused otherwise if she never showed up again.
Yeah, I figured you needed that spoiler, so you're welcome for the sad news.
Yeah, thank you. Very good, very good. All right, so that brings us to the end of the episode. We'd like to thank you all for sticking with us and listening. You can listen to us wherever you listen to your podcasts. We drop every Sunday after Top Chef airs. If you're interested in our social media, you can look up Food and Dine or Food and Dine Podcast, and we look forward to having you along next week. Welcome to the table. Let's eat.